Great day to all my gardeners and growers out there. I'm doing my best, and today we're going to talk about pH. What is it? What does it mean to your plants? And how can you prevent problems with your pH? These are all questions that at the end of this video, you'll be able to answer yourself. So let's get to it. What is pH? Pretty much pH is a measured scale of whether something is an acid or a base. On the lower end, they call it bases, from 0 to right below 7. Right at 7, you have neutral, which is water, and then above 7, you have what they call bases. So right above 7 to 14. Now, acids and bases are what you're going to be looking at whenever you have a liquid. Whenever you have a liquid of any form, you can test whether or not it's an acid or a base. Plants actually would rather be in an acidic environment. From 5.5 to 6.5 is the prime environment for a plant to exist. So as long as it's in that environment, it's going to be able to uptake nutrients. So why is the pH of the medium so important to a plant? In order for a plant to eat, it has to absorb its nutrients from something that's already digested it or has already gone through the composting process. Plants are not like animals like you and I. We evolved as hunters and gatherers. Animals evolved with instincts to go out and hunt, kill, eat, and they've been able to, over years, move to where food actually is. Plants don't have that same ability. What they do is they use their roots to find food. And at the end of those roots are positively charged tips. And those tips will grab onto any negatively charged nutrient that it needs. Each one of those receptors is going to be shaped based on the receptor that it needs. There's going to be a shape for a calcium receptor. There's going to be a shape for iron. There's going to be a shape for nitrogen, potassium, so forth and so on. And so inside the dirt or the medium, the water or whatever the plant is growing in, that positively charged root tip is going to grab on to those negatively charged ions. If there are no negatively charged ions in that environment, the plant simply cannot eat. So if you have a problem with your plants, 9 times out of 10, pH could be a problem. But the issue is, once you start going in and testing it, you may actually be causing more harm than good. When I started out doing gardening, I wanted to make sure that I was a good gardener, and I wanted to know everything that I could know about gardening. I spent a lot of time researching, watching videos, and I learned that there was a lot of different ways that you could test pH. I have a garden outside, I have an indoor garden, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't ever have problems with pH because it gave me nightmares thinking about having pH and my plants weren't eating. So I bought some stuff, and I don't know if it was making me better or if it was just making me kind of more scientific with my approach. The first thing that I had was the electronic soil tester, which you're supposed to put in the ground, and it tells you what the pH of your soil is, and that's pretty cool, but I never got it to work right. I used to stick it in the ground. It used to give me a reading. I didn't know if it was what I wanted, and honestly, it wasn't very reliable for me. So some of you guys out there watching this, if you use this and you were able to get it to work right, let me know what I was doing wrong. But I had to move on because I really didn't like the results that I got with using the soil tester. Plus, it really didn't make sense that I could stick something in the ground and it would tell me the pH of the soil. And I really wasn't satisfied with it. The very next thing that I did was I got the testing kit that you use for liquids. So before I was pouring in my nutrients, before I was feeding, I was actually testing my fertilizer. What I would do after I would mix it, I would pour a little bit into this vial, about halfway full. I would put about 3 to 4 drops in here, and then I would shake up the vial. And these strips along the side of the bottle will tell you what the pH is based on the color. So as long as I got it to the right pH, I was good to go. But what if it wasn't at the right pH? That was where all this other stuff came in. Then I had to divide the pH and the pH up and the pH down. And if your pH was too low, you had to use the pH up. If your pH was too high, you had to use the pH down. but there was no real science on how much you need to use. Like if you had your pH was around 8, then how much of the pH down do you use? There's no real way. You drop a few drops, then you test it. Drop a few drops, then you test it. If it gets too low, then you're gonna need to go back up. And I'm just playing this juggling act, going up and down forever. And honestly, I was getting frustrated. That didn't seem like a solution that was giving me results on a regular basis. There had to be a better way. I didn't think that that was the best way, and I was going to continue researching to figure out what the best way was. It wasn't until I got into composting where I got to a point where I didn't have to worry about pH anymore. The process of composting actually produces humic acids. Humic acids are the high carbon substances that plants use in order to actually build their cells and do many different functions. Those humic acids have a way of balancing out any natural environment for life. Carbon is the building block of life. They say protein is the building block of life, but at the same time, we're all carbon-based beings. And so those carbon molecules actually will make the environment more suitable for life. And that's what's making it more suitable for plants. In their liquid form are so small that they actually can enter through a cell wall. And it comes from the composting process. If you include composting in your gardening regimen, whether you use compost as a part of your soil or you put compost tea to enrich your soil on a regular basis, you're going to fix problems with your pH on a regular basis naturally. Because the proper compost tea is going to be full of humic and fulvic acid, and that's going to be what helps you get to the right pH range for your plants. So you could go down the range of going through and getting all of these testing kits and all of these testing supplies, or you could do it the natural way. There's something about what goes through the natural composting process that those enzymes will fix nature for itself. So I really wouldn't spend all that time, if I were you, going down this road. I would just get fulvic acid to cure my problems with the pH if I had some. Even if you currently are having problems with your pH, 9 times out of 10 you can cure it by adding fulvic acid to your regimen. So if you don't already have some, you should get some. You can find Botanicare at nurseries, and you can also find it online. And honestly, that's been what has helped cure my problems with pH. Now, silica is another ingredient that I use in my compost tea, but silica is a very basic ingredient. Now, that means that if you were to use pH, if you were going to use silica on your plants directly, it would kill your plants because it would make the environment too basic and plants would not be able to eat. So what you need to do is you need to add the silica before you add the other ingredients so that it balances back out. But the main ingredient that you want to add if you are using silica is to make sure that you are using fulvic acid. Because like I said earlier, the fulvic acid is going to bring back the pH to a scale that's perfect and suitable for life. As long as you use the fulvic acid, you should be in good shape. I used to have problems with pH, but once I started using the regular regimen of compost tea weekly in my feeding for all of my plants, I haven't had to look at pH ever lately. All of my plants are growing well. The soil is healthy, it's full of life, it's full of earthworms, all types of bugs. I'm usually having to make sure that I'm keeping the pests out of my soil and off of my plants. So honestly, I've gotten to a point where I'm letting nature take care of itself. All that I'm doing is all that I do is replenish it on a weekly basis regularly so that I don't have to worry about pH anymore. I did, but I don't anymore. So simply put, as long as you follow the correct feeding regimen for your plants and you let the plants manage their own pH, you won't have to worry about it. Remember, plants will tell you what's wrong. You just have to listen. Well, I hope that sets the record straight on pH and helps you guys avoid problems in the garden. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. You can also find me on Instagram on Straight Outta Compost. That's STR8OUTTACOMPOST. Until next time, happy gardening.